Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump recently underwent medical tests due to mild swelling in his legs and bruising in one hand. Hear what the White House is saying about this condition. Democratic senators walk out of a formal meeting today in protest of a vote on the nomination of Emil Bove to serve on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. Attorney General Pam Bondi visits Alcatraz Island in San Francisco. She's expected to formally announce plans to reopen the landmark as a federal prison. The White House says immigration enforcement requires skills far beyond the purview of any judge. Where is the line between the judicial and the executive in immigration matters? We talked to a legal analyst. The U.S. Senate passes $9 billion in spending cuts. Will the cuts slow the economy? We talked to an economist. Thousands of Falun Gong practitioners gather in the nation's capital today. They're marking 26 years of peaceful resistance to the persecution in China. The State Department and U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle call for an end to the abuse in China.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. The Senate passed early Thursday morning its version of the rescissions package. It now heads to the House for a final vote ahead of the July 18th deadline. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has the details on the story.
We're looking forward to the House blessing the Senate package. I'm not worried about it. We need to get it done and get it across the finish line, but very historic moment, the return of using rescissions, getting the muscle memory for that back into the system. We've talked about defunding Corporation for Public Broadcasting for decades. President Trump's the first one to be able to do it.
Early Thursday morning, the Senate passed after an overnight session the president's $9 billion rescissions request that would claw back funds from USAID, NPR, and PBS. Lawmakers expect this to be the first of several rescissions packages to go through Congress this year.
Look, I think the biggest problem that this country faces is our $37 trillion national debt, that we're spending $1 trillion a year on interest. Yeah. So the fraud, the waste, the abuse is out there. We need to do something, and this is some, I would say, low-hanging fruit. I wish that we had a bit bigger rescission package.
All but two Senate Republicans voted in favor of the bill. Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski opposed the bill on principle.
I have a vote that I am free to cast with or without the support of the president. My obligation is to my constituents and to the Constitution. So I look at the Constitution and say that it is the legislative branch that has the power of the purse.
The $9 billion rescissions package now heads to the House, where lawmakers have until July 18th, this Friday, to pass the bill.
So we're going to take a look at it today, see what the Senate did. I think they did some stuff in a tribal context for stations, which is appropriate. Those public broadcasting stations in the West, overlay them with who voted for President Trump. And it's like, guess what? These were the president's people in a voter sense.
Democrats in the Senate and the House have opposed the bill that requires only a simple majority to pass through Congress.
Well, the first thing I would say is they're doing this in large measure because of the failures of Elon Musk and Doge. He promised he was going to save $2 trillion from waste, fraud, and abuse. He never presented a single case of actionable fraud. And now, instead of $2 trillion, they're focused on $9 billion.
The House of Representatives is also expected to vote this Thursday on their version of the defense appropriation bill for fiscal year 2026. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Thousands of Falun Gong practitioners will gather in the nation's capital today. They're marking 26 years of peaceful resistance to the persecution in China. The State Department and U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle call for an end to the Chinese regime's abuse of human rights. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
On July 20th, 1999, the Chinese Communist Party launched a brutal campaign to eradicate a widespread spiritual discipline known as Falun Gong, or Falun Dafa.
They're not, and they treat their people as if they're disposable assets, and they're not. I mean, all people are created in the image of God. And we need to do everything we can to prevent these types of horrific crimes from taking place.
As we approach the 26-year mark of the persecution, the State Department described it as a campaign of repression against practitioners of Falun Gong and their families. Telling the Epoch Times, we again call on the CCP to end its campaign to eradicate Falun Gong. U.S. lawmakers told NTD the importance of standing up to the persecution.
And that if we don't call out human rights abuses from a country that is seeking to expand its sphere of influence across the world, it really challenges American safety and security and prosperity. And
in America, we believe that people have individual liberties granted to them by God, and we hold that very dear for people all around the world. So we've got to always call out persecution.
I will continue to stand with the Falun Gong practitioners, and Chinese government looks at it as a form of threat. I think that's completely wrong.
Today, thousands of Falun Gong practitioners will gather in the nation's capital to rally against the ongoing persecution and commemorate those who've lost their lives at the hands of the Chinese regime.
Basically the guts to stand up against a government like that, and Americans and anybody that believes in human rights, we have to stand with them.
A dangerous government and a very powerful government going against you. It is a hard thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. We stand for what's right, and I think those are the people who write history. That's what history is written about.
In the end, tyranny is broken by the people.
The House recently passed a bill to sanction CCP officials who engage in forcibly harvesting organs from living people, mainly prisoners of conscience who practice Falun Gong. Lawmakers are calling for Senate leadership to take up the House bill.
It's despicable this is happening. So we've got to tell the Chinese government that we're not going to stand for it.
We need to make some kind of decision. The House has done that. We need to do the same thing.
I don't think we've done enough. We need to do more. And I appreciate the attention that's being brought to the horrible things that China does.
The rally in Washington, D.C. aims to raise awareness among Americans about the persecution, expose the CCP's human rights abuse, and call for the U.S. government to further hold the regime accountable for its malign acts. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
In a White House press briefing, Secretary Karoline Leavitt highlighted the administration's progress in sealing the southwest border. She noted just over 6,000 apprehensions at the border in June, 15% lower than the previous record set in March. She also gave details on ICE arrests and deportations.
For the second consecutive month in a row, President Trump promised to end the illegal alien invasion, and he has delivered on that promise to the American people in record time. With the border sealed, deportations are ramping up. This past weekend, our brave ICE agents were arresting violent criminal illegal aliens all across the country. ICE Atlanta arrested an illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of attempted rape of a child in North Carolina. ICE Baltimore arrested an illegal alien from Guatemala who was previously convicted for sexual abuse of a minor in Maryland. ICE Houston arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico whose previous conviction includes aggravated sexual assault of a child in Texas. ICE Salt Lake City arrested a 32-year-old illegal criminal alien from Mexico who was previously convicted for child abuse and injury. ICE Baltimore arrested a criminal illegal alien from El Salvador convicted in Maryland for possession of child pornography. And ICE San Antonio arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico convicted of aggravated sexual assault in Texas.
Leavitt also confirmed details of President Trump's current state of health following a comprehensive medical check.
In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy, and the president remains in excellent health, which I think.
Attorney General Pam Bondi and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum visited Alcatraz Island in San Francisco this morning. They toured the island before it opened for tourists. Bondi is expected to formally announce plans to reopen Alcatraz as a federal prison President Trump called for first back in May. Alcatraz operated as a penitentiary from 1934 to 1963. It housed some of the nation's most dangerous criminals like Al Capone and Robert Stroud, the so-called Birdman of Alcatraz. After the visit, Secretary Burgum said the Trump administration is starting to work to renovate and reopen the site to contain the most dangerous criminals again, as well as the most dangerous illegal immigrants. The Trump administration asked an appeals court on July 14th to allow immigration operations to resume in Southern California after a federal judge ordered it to stop. U.S. District Judge Frimpong issued a temporary restraining order on July 11th. It stopped the administration from carrying out immigration enforcement in the 7-county Central District of California, which includes Los Angeles. Joining us now to discuss is Andrew Arthur, Fellow in Law and Policy, Center for Immigration Studies, and former immigration judge. Good afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for joining us today. So District Judge Frimpong cited violations of the Fourth Amendment. The judge found that DHS was allegedly targeting individuals based on characteristics, such as how they look. So my question to you is, how does the Fourth Amendment apply to immigration enforcement actions? To what extent can factors like race, language, and other things be used as part of establishing reasonable suspicion?
So, yeah, the Fourth Amendment protects all individuals in the United States from unreasonable searches and seizures. And ICE actually has some pretty rigorous regulations that govern when they can make stops, whether they can question somebody, and when they can arrest them. So generally, just like anybody else in our society, they can ask questions of anybody they want. When they make a tentative stop, or what we call a Terry stop after the case of Terry versus Ohio, they need to have reasonable suspicion based upon objective factors for why they believe that an individual that they're talking to is unlawfully present in the United States. And what Judge Frimpong's order did was it limited ICE's ability to use certain characteristics. Well, one of those characteristics is an inability to speak the English language. Now, again, you don't want to stop every person that can't speak English. In fact, in Los Angeles, where this order is in effect, about 57% of people don't speak English in the home. But it can't be used as a factor at all in combination with other factors, such as where that individual is working, where they are congregating. So, it's a problematic order. It ties the hands of ICE in doing its operations. Quite frankly, it goes well beyond any other order with respect to a Terry stop that I've ever seen in my life. Particularly if ICE has information that a place is a worker congregation site, which again is not one of the other restrictions that's in the judge's order. So, yeah, I mean, it's an overreach on the part of the court. She's plainly unhappy with the way that ICE does its operations. But I'm not entirely clear that that order is based upon concrete facts as opposed to a lot of things that you hear in the news. Again, I'll give the judge the benefit of the doubt, but this is a massive overreach. The courts can't run how the executive branch does its business.
Also, on another front, was it justified for the judge to issue a district-wide injunction, or should the relief have been just limited to the plaintiffs?
I think in this particular instance, issuing district-wide relief was appropriate. Note that she didn't issue nationwide relief, which a lot of judges have been doing lately, and which the Supreme Court put a stop on a few weeks ago. Limiting it to the named parties probably wouldn't have done much good because they would have been the only people. If the assertions that she makes are true, in that case, district-wide relief may be appropriate. But again, I have some real questions with the way that she issued the order and framed it. I think that she interposes herself too much into law enforcement issues. which are well established. The leading case on this, by the way, is a case called INS versus Lopez Mendoza that dates back to 1984. At the time that Lopez Mendoza was issued in the court's decision, they note that the average INS at the time agent makes 500 arrests per year. If if ICE were proceeding at that same pace today, we would be at 6 million apprehensions per year. Whereas, Judge Frimpong is talking about, a few hundred to possibly a couple of thousand arrests in Los Angeles. So, yeah, no, this is the order overreaches. I don't necessarily think it does with respect to the scope of the order, but it certainly does with respect to the actual restrictions in the order.
So you're saying the order overreaches, and that sort of aligns with what the White House is saying, that immigration enforcement, requires skills far beyond the purview of any judge. But I also want your thoughts as well. Where do you see the line between the judicial and the executive in immigration matters?
So, yeah, I mean, Congress actually has, drawn the line pretty clearly. Section 242 of the Immigration and Nationality Act largely cuts district courts out of making adjudications in any given immigration case. So all of those cases have to be appealed to the courts of appeal, specifically to cut the district courts out of it. Because, the cases move too slowly, they're often in error. There's a reason why we have courts of appeal and then a court of appeal, super court of appeal above the courts of appeal. So, yeah, I mean, it is appropriate when there are actual issues that need to be resolved, salient issues when there is government misconduct to, use the district court's authority. But I think that what we're seeing today, and this is one of the complaints that's being made by the White House, is that they're overreaching to find jurisdiction. And that they are interposing themselves into questions that are better left to the political branches, Congress and the executive branch, not to unelected judges.
And a couple of smaller things here. The government argues that it was only given 2 business days, to respond to hundreds of pages of filings. Is there anything to be said there? Does it have a point?
Yeah, I mean, you have to give any party to a case time to respond. And, when you're talking, in law, we refer to it as burying somebody in paper. And, that kind of sharp practice was the sort of thing that when I was a judge, I didn't stand for. Most judges shouldn't stand for it. And the government should, just like any other party in any other case, be given an appropriate period of time to respond. Now, you are talking about the largest law firm in the world, the Department of Justice, but they also have a whole lot of cases that they're dealing with right now.
So another point is the Justice Department lawyers also said the original court action was filed by 3 workers seeking release from immigration detention. But the action was then amended to add a host of new workers and immigrant organizations, perhaps in an apparent attempt to get a preferred judge and a broader ruling. Is there legal merit to the administration's accusation there?
Again, that's one of those things that I'm going to probably leave for the courts to resolve. It's poor practice for any lawyer to criticize how any other lawyer, and certainly how any judge does his or her business. So, with respect to that, there's plainly some gamesmanship that's taking place in all of these immigration cases, but respectfully, that's not exactly limited to this particular iteration of the Trump administration. It certainly happened during the first one, and to a degree it happened under the Biden administration when states were challenging that court's orders. Look, we know that forum shopping takes place. We know that plaintiffs will file their claims in places where they expect that they're going to get the best result. And quite frankly, that is why I give kudos to Congress in the Immigration and Nationality Act in restricting where those cases can be filed. So, really what we need is for the Supreme Court to step in, say Congress's restrictions mean what they say, and to enforce those restrictions.
All right, Andrew, before I let you go here, let me just get your comments on one more subject. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass issued a executive directive affirming the city's sanctuary status in response to ongoing ICE operations. Can a city legally prohibit its personnel and resources from assisting federal immigration enforcement?
Sure, they can. And actually, under what's called the commandeering principle, the federal government doesn't have the ability to force states and localities to engage in strictly federal operations. Most will generally cooperate. If you bust a drug dealer, they're going to work with the DEA to, make that work. Immigration, for some reason, has become an outlier on this, which is odd because in this particular instance, ICE is attempting to go after criminals. Nobody wants criminals on their streets, except apparently in sanctuary communities. And those sanctuary rules really only benefit criminals because most of those alien criminals operate in immigrant communities. So, this is probably one of the most misguided political crusades I've ever heard anyone go on. It's time that we cut back on the rhetoric, we cut back on the nonsense, that we keep our communities safe, that we take criminals into custody, get them off the streets and out of the country.
Okay, just one more quick question while I have you here. Are actions like providing cash aid or other support to illegal immigrants legally protected?
So, yeah, that's actually a great question because it is against federal law. It's against the Immigration and Nationality Act. It's a criminal violation to harbor individuals who are unlawfully present in the United States. So I think the next thing that you're going to see out of the Trump administration is a suit going after the cash payments that Mayor Bass is proposing giving to, individuals who are living unlawfully in the United States and who claim that they're, not able to go to work because they're afraid of ICE. There was a case that was revealed today in which a woman, a Mexican national, had alleged she'd been kidnapped by ICE and held in a warehouse. Turned out she hadn't. She was actually at large, but she opened a GoFundMe page to help get her out of the custody that she wasn't in. So, honestly, that's going to be the next stage of all of this. This is a complicated subject. It's to a degree too complicated for district court judges. But, it's up to outlets like this and people like me to explain it to Americans because, quite frankly, I agree with Jefferson. When the people know all the facts, they never make a mistake.
Well, Andrew, we thank you for explaining it to us. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Don.
Coming up, Democratic senators walk out of a formal meeting today in protest of a vote on the nomination of Emil Bove to serve on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. 21 children have been removed from a couple's custody in a surrogacy scheme. FBI and local investigations are underway. A Chinese couple in California is accused of enlisting multiple women to carry their babies. That and more after the break.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. It makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Their everyday low prices are now even better. Shop Price Drop Alerts and save up to 25% off store-wide. Shop the latest looks in dining rooms, all at big savings. This set is a great deal, perfect for family get-togethers. You get the table and 4 side chairs for just $7.99 in your choice of finishes. They have over 100 dining sets in stock with fast and free delivery. Look for Price Drop Alert tags and save now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Democratic senators walked out of a judiciary meeting today. It happened after Senator Chuck Grassley refused to allow additional debate over the federal judge nomination of Emil Bove. Here are some of the highlights.
Democratic senators walked out of a nomination meeting on Thursday to protest the roll call vote of President Trump's nominee for a Third Circuit Court of Appeals judgeship, Emil Bove. Senator Cory Booker pleads with Chairman Chuck Grassley to stop the vote as his Democratic colleagues walk out.
There are some people on this committee who are the least firebrand people, and they've walked out. Some of the least controversial people in the Senate, some of the people that worked the hardest to find bipartisan common ground have just walked out of this committee.
Booker had demanded additional time to discuss claims made against Bove by a department whistleblower.
We have an obligation, a duty, constitutional duty, to advise and consent that requires full and fair consideration. At this moment, there are still unanswered questions surrounding this nominee, evidence and data coming out, at least one whistleblower who's come forward. Moving forward with this vote before this committee has addressed these issues and concerns would undermine the integrity of this process.
Aris Rovini, a longtime DOJ lawyer fired this year, recently came forward with allegations that Bove told government lawyers they might need to disobey court orders. At his confirmation hearing, Bove denied that he had ever told subordinates to violate a court order. At the beginning of the meeting Thursday, Chairman Senator Chuck Grassley defended Bove and said there was no reason to delay the nomination.
Now, let's say even if we accept most of the claim as true, there's no scandal here. Government lawyers aggressively litigating and interpreting court orders isn't misconduct. It's what lawyers do all the time. So, let's stick to the facts. The whistleblower alleges misconduct, but 10 days after the key event he described, he signed a brief stating, without qualifications, that, quote, the government has complied with the court orders in this case, end of quote.
Despite the walkout, the majority voted in favor of Bove's nomination. Before concluding the meeting, Grassley said it's not unusual for one party to leave in protest during a nomination vote. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
A California couple is accused of running a surrogacy scheme. Surrogate moms found out that the babies they helped carry are now in foster care. Federal and local investigations are underway. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Federal and local investigations are being conducted as many surrogate moms from Texas to Florida found out that the babies they carried are now in foster care. The mothers thought they were helping a Chinese couple in Southern California who were struggling to have a second child. It turns out the women were all surrogates for the same couple at the same time, matched through the agency Mark Surrogacy, now renamed Future Spring Surrogacy. The suspected couple is Sylvia Zhang, 38, and Guojun Xuan, 65, who served as president of the Xinjiang Chamber of Commerce in the United States. That organization is part of a network tied to the Chinese Communist Party's United Front Work Department. In early May, police investigated a child abuse situation in the couple's home after a 2-month-old baby was hospitalized with head trauma. A nanny was allegedly caught on camera violently shaking the baby, and the parents reportedly delayed seeking medical care for 2 days. Police say that Zhang and Swan were arrested on suspicion of felony child endangerment and neglect on May 9th. They were later released. The Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services also investigated and removed all children from the couple's custody, 21 children in total, ranging from 2 months to 13 years old, mostly babies and toddlers. One of the first surrogates to speak publicly was Kayla Elliott, who shared her story on social media and launched a GoFundMe to raise legal funds. She is now trying to gain custody of the baby girl she delivered. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Now to the southern border, where workers are building a taller secondary barrier. It will reinforce the steel fence along a 7-mile stretch of New Mexico's desert area. Customs and Border Protection says the project will close critical gaps in the border wall and enhance security operations. Border Patrol arrested close to 40,000 migrants in the El Paso sector in the past year, down 78% from the year prior. In a statement to Border Report, Customs and Border Protection said criminal organizations in the El Paso sector frequently use bolt cutters, grinders, and acetylene torches to break through the barrier. A federal official told Border Report that the new barrier will be much more difficult to break through. Meanwhile, border officials seized more than $880,000 in narcotics from a vehicle in Hidalgo, Texas yesterday. Homeland Security officials arrested the driver and a criminal investigation is now underway. An immigration raid at a cannabis farm in Southern California has led to a criminal investigation and a manhunt for a suspected gunman. The FBI has released a photo of the man suspected of firing a gun at federal agents during protests in Camarillo last week. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the story.
An immigration raid at a Ventura County cannabis farm has sparked a criminal investigation and a manhunt for a suspected gunman. The incident unfolded outside Glass House Farms on July 10th. News helicopters captured the moment a person in the crowd allegedly fired a gun at federal agents. Federal authorities are offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the suspect's arrest and conviction. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom is pushing back against the Trump administration's immigration enforcement actions, calling the National Guard deployment unnecessary and wasteful at a press conference on Wednesday.
5,000 military, 4,000 federalized with the National Guard, close to 1,000 U.S. Marines. He sent them to a United States city. The utilization rate of our National Guard, less than 5%. You spent hundreds of millions of dollars, wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on this.
Newsom says federal enforcement is hurting small businesses and stoking fear in immigrant communities, calling it political theater. The U.S. Department of Justice is requesting data from California sheriffs on all non-citizens held in county jails, including in Los Angeles and San Francisco counties. Officials argue the data request is necessary to help immigration agents identify and remove individuals who have committed serious crimes after entering the country illegally. They say while all illegal immigrants are in violation of federal law by definition, those who go on to commit violent offenses including rape, murder, and other felonies pose a heightened threat to public safety. Officials say the goal is to prioritize deportations of criminal illegal aliens and ensure public safety across the nation. Christina Corona, NTD News.
The future of California's proposed high-speed rail is now in question. President Trump has announced the cancellation of federal funding for the project. Trump called the effort a, quote, disastrously overpriced high-speed train to nowhere. He described the project as a $15 billion failure with no high-speed track laid after 16 years. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy confirmed that about $4 billion in federal funds will be terminated. But California leaders are fighting back. Governor Gavin Newsom called the termination illegal and said the state is actively laying track across 171 miles. A federal appeals court says Arkansas can enforce its classroom ban on critical race theory. The judges ruled yesterday that the First Amendment doesn't give students a right to demand a specific curriculum. The court emphasized that curriculum decisions belong to elected leaders, not judges. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders praised the ruling as a win for parental rights. The case was brought by students and teachers from Little Rock Central High, a historic site in the civil rights movement. The U.S. Senate voted to pass $9 billion in spending cuts requested by President Donald Trump. It includes cuts to National Public Radio and the Public Broadcasting Service. Most of the bill's cuts stem from rescissions of funding for the U.S. Agency for International Development. Joining us now to discuss is public policy analyst and economist Michael Busler, professor of finance, Stockton University. Good afternoon, Michael. So to start off, can you give us your analysis of this $9 billion rescissions package in the context of federal spending?
Well, in the total context of federal spending, it's a very small amount. Remember, the federal government in 2019 spent $4.5 trillion that year. 2025, they're going to spend $7.3 trillion. We clearly have a problem with the government spending too much money. Although tax revenue has increased virtually every year, it hasn't been able to keep up nearly with that increase in spending. So we all know the result has been huge annual deficits, and worse yet, a public debt exceeding $36 trillion. So recall when President Trump came into office, he formed the Department of Government Efficiency. The purpose was to find waste, fraud, and abuse and other ways to cut government spending to get this $7.3 trillion spending number down. DOGE found hundreds of billions of dollars in spending that could have been cut. So President Trump said, well, let's start with the first $9 billion, a relatively small amount in the budget. Yet, it barely passed the Senate. It's got to go through the House yet. The reason we're having so much trouble is every politician says, look, government spending is way out of control. We have to rein in on government spending. It creates a problem. However, don't cut spending in any area that affects my constituents is essentially what these elected officials say. So whenever we try to cut even a small amount, $9 billion, less than 0.1% of what the government spends, it's extremely difficult to get it passed. So my view is it's a good first step, a very small first step. We're going to have to find ways to cut government spending in the future.
And how does this package, in your opinion, fit into the broader context between monetary fiscal tightening and fiscal policy right now?
So the fiscal policy, government spending and taxation, the Trump administration says, in their view, that lower rates of taxation will increase economic activity and therefore bring in more tax revenue, which is why the big, beautiful bill was passed. So the policy is to keep tax rates low, increase growth, and that'll increase revenue. At the same time, we have a huge spending problem that has to be reduced. He's trying everything he can to get this government spending down. It is extremely difficult. Elon Musk got so frustrated with this. He said, look, you put me in charge of DOGE and I found hundreds of billions of dollars that should be cut, and yet you're only cutting $9 billion. He got extremely upset. He's fed up with the political system. He's ready to start his own political party. I understand his frustration, and I think all Americans should be frustrated. The federal government continues to spend way too much money, and a lot of it on things that are frivolous and are wasteful, fraudulent, and abusive. And yet, when we try to cut government spending, we run into all of these problems.
So, Michael, I can hear that you're in support of, cutting spending, right? But is there a concern in your mind that, cutting spending too much, might slow down the economy?
Not with the amount we're talking about. $9 billion is a drop in the bucket. We have a $28 trillion economy. $9 billion isn't going to do anything. We should cut even more, significantly more, out of government spending. Now, again, the reality is, because senators and congressmen won't vote for it, the best we can hope to do is try to keep government spending down without actually cutting. Look, this big, beautiful bill, they didn't cut any money out of Medicare. They had Medicare increasing by 5%. They reduced the increase down to about 2%. And everybody's up in arms. You're cutting Medicare. People will lose their health care. People are going to die because of this. So every time they try to cut spending, they can't. Even if they try to slow the rate of growth in spending, it becomes very difficult. We have to face this at some point. We've been kicking the can down the road for too long. I remember back in the 1980s, Reagan ran these deficits and people said, well, we have to deal with it. And essentially Reagan said, well, we'll pass it on to the next president, let him worry about it. Each president subsequently has done that. Well, finally you get to President Trump here in 2025, and he said, look, we're at the end of the road. We can't kick the can down the road any further. We have to get our fiscal house in order. Now, let me say one thing on the positive side. In the month of June, the government was able to reduce spending, and because tax revenue to the government went up, mostly because of the tariff income, we ran a surplus in the budget last month. So it is possible to keep spending down, increase revenue without increasing taxes, and try to come close to balancing the budget. We'll have to keep doing that going forward. In the fall, there's another budget crisis that could come up, and we're going to have to deal with this. But we can't kick the can down the road anymore. We're at the end of the road. It's time to face the fact that $36 trillion in debt we're leaving to our children and grandchildren. It's simply not fair.
I mean, I hear you, Michael. I think you're right, but let me play devil's advocate for a moment.
Sure.
You look at the federal budget, you break down the mandatory spending versus the discretionary spending. I mean, where can you even cut?
So what you're saying is, look, you take a look at Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. That's over 50% of the government budget. Interest on the debt is another almost 10%. So there's 60% that is nearly impossible to cut. We're going to have to cut it out of either the defense side, and the president said our military is run down, we can't do that, or on the domestic spending side. That's really where the cuts have to occur. Admittedly, it's very difficult. In my view, what they're eventually going to have to do is take a look at Social Security and Medicare, which are such large items, well over half the budget. Now, people say, look, you can't cut people's benefits. That's not right. And I agree with that. So this is a problem. Economists would say there are no good solutions to this problem of reducing spending for Social Security, Medicare, and entitlement programs. If there are no good solutions, the next best thing to do is to find the solution that's least bad. In my view, the least bad solution is to raise the retirement age up to at least 70 and eventually even a little bit longer. Now, people scream when I say that, but keep in mind, when they passed Social Security in 1935, you retired at 65. The average life expectancy was 67, so it only collected for a couple years. Today, you can collect Medicare at 65, retire at 67 for Social Security. People are living well into their 70s, 80s, 90s. Many people are living to be over 100. Well, that program cannot cover everybody that's living that long. So the only solution, in my view, that makes any kind of sense is raising the retirement age. That'll keep people working a little bit longer and paying in, and fewer people retiring and collecting benefits. That'll help to solve the problem.
And maybe another potential solution is, raising or improving the birth rate with more people contributing into Social Security and fewer people taking out I mean, maybe that's a potential solution. But I want to ask you about another thing, which is President Trump suggesting, the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates, and that would save, billions of dollars per year.
I agree with him. Jerome Powell, in my view, is the worst chairperson we've had since Arthur Burns in the 70s, who's generally regarded to be the worst. He's made mistake after mistake. This whole inflation problem, which started in January of 2021 and peaked in June of 2022, for those 18 months, he kept interest rates near zero and kept expanding the money supply. Finally, he woke up in 2022 and started to raise interest rates to solve the problem. Well, we have the problem pretty much solved. Inflation's down under 3%. It was down to 2.3. It went up a little bit the last month or two, but economic growth has slowed. In the first quarter of this year, GDP had negative growth. Most economists would say if the federal funds rate is in the 3.25, 3.5 range, we call that neutral. If it's above that, you're trying to slow the economy down. And if it's below that, you're trying to stimulate the economy. The federal funds rate is over 4.25%. We shouldn't be trying to slow the economy down when we have negative GDP growth in the first quarter. Now, to be fair, Jerome Powell would answer yes, but there's potential inflationary problem with tariffs on the horizon. I don't think so. I don't think the tariffs will cause any inflation, or at least negligible inflation. Meanwhile, President Trump is vastly increasing the supply of energy. That'll bring energy prices down. Energy prices count for about 7% of the consumer price index. If we can keep the energy prices falling by increasing the supply, even if there's a little inflation from the tariffs, the lower energy prices will more than offset that. The Federal Reserve is meeting, I think, next week. They should cut interest rates. I don't think they're going to. Probably won't see an interest rate cut until September. I think it's a mistake what the Federal Reserve is doing.
Well, okay, Michael, it's always great to hear your thoughts. That's our time today. Thank you so much.
Always my pleasure.
When we come back, President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky are reportedly considering a drone deal. We have that and more when we return.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
President Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky are reportedly considering a drone deal. Under the proposal, Washington would buy battle-tested Ukrainian drones in exchange for Kyiv purchasing American weapons. Zelensky told the New York Post that his latest talks with Trump focused on bolstering both nations' aerial technology. Ukrainian drones have been able to strike targets as deep as 800 miles inside Russian territory. The Ukrainian president said drones have been key to fighting off Russia's invasion for more than 3 years. Zelensky added that Ukraine was also in talks with Denmark, Norway, and Germany. Meanwhile, Germany and the United Kingdom are strengthening ties amid foreign threats. They signed a wide-ranging friendship treaty today, deepening partnership in various areas. Germany's chancellor is in London meeting with Prime Minister Keir Starmer. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
Together, we signed the Kensington Treaty, the first ever major bilateral treaty between the United Kingdom and Germany.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer praises a friendship treaty signed with Germany on Thursday. The Kensington Treaty includes a clause on mutual assistance. It builds on a defense deal agreed to last year that included the joint development of long-range strike weapons. Crucial for the UK, it also includes a pledge by Germany to assist in combating illegal immigration. And it aims to improve connectivity by establishing a new direct rail connection.
It's an expression of our shared aims and values. A historic treaty, a statement of intent and ambition.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is in England for the day to sign the treaty. It's his first visit as the German head of state. His trip is the latest international visit to the UK to help Starmer reset Britain's ties with the European Union. The UK left the bloc almost a decade ago, which Merz says he regrets a lot.
Russia is shaking the foundations of the European security architecture, and transatlantic relations are changing in ways not seen for a long time.
He added that under these conditions, it's crucial to secure freedom, security, and prosperity in Europe. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in Britain's next general election. The government is seeking to reform voting rules to modernize the nation's elections. But while positive about the change, some young students were worried some young voters may be too impressionable to make clear voting decisions. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us.
The British government announced a raft of measures aiming to modernize the UK's democracy. A major one being lowering the age of voting to 16.
We will legislate and implement provisions to extend the voter franchise to 16 and 17-year-olds, increase participation in our elections, tackle the inconsistencies in voter ID rules, and protect our democracy by overhauling our political finance rules.
This will align voting rights across Britain, since 16-year-olds are already able to participate in Scottish and Welsh elections. Opposition Housing Minister Paul Holmes said the government is hopelessly confused about the age of majority.
Why does this government think a 16-year-old can vote, but not be allowed to buy a lottery ticket, an alcoholic drink, marry or go to war, or even stand in the elections they're voting in?
Ali responded that the Labour Party was elected on a manifesto promising to give the vote to 16-year-olds. Some students are positive about the change, but did raise a couple of concerns.
I think a lot of people, even from a very young age, have very strong opinions and they think their opinions should be heard. And I think even though we are young, it is important to have a say.
Yeah, I'm happy about it, but there is like that small worry about like people who are just gonna like take their parents' opinions and just vote with what their parents say.
I know lots of people who are really very impressionable, but I think it is a small minority of people that will actually get affected by far right or far left social media.
A poll of 500 16 and 17-year-olds conducted for ITV News by Merlin Strategy found only half said they thought they should be allowed to vote. Only 18% said they would definitely vote.
When we look at 16, 17-year-olds, they do make a very small percentage of the UK voting population, especially when you take into account how many will actually vote.
Galley said historically, turnout among younger age groups is significantly lower. He also said that young voters, such as 18 to 24-year-olds, are turning away from mainstream media.
They're getting their news from TikTok, from YouTube. If parties want to connect with these groups, they're going to have to work more on social media and actually reach these 16, 17-year-olds where they're getting their media, not where traditionally voters have.
Globally, most countries have a voting age of 18, though 4 nations in the European Union last year voted to allow voting from the age of 16. The change in Britain will require parliamentary approval, but this is unlikely to be an obstacle given the Labour Party's large majority in Parliament. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits fell last week to the lowest level in 3 months. The U.S. labor market remains robust despite fears over the impact of President Trump's tariffs. The Labor Department released yesterday, actually today, showed that jobless claims for the week ending July 12th fell by 7,000. The drop to 221,000 claims marked the fewest since mid-April. Last week's number was also lower than the 232,000 that analysts had forecasted. Earlier this month, the Labor Department reported that U.S. employers added 147,000 jobs in June. The unemployment rate remained around 4%. The total number of Americans collecting unemployment benefits for the week of July 5th remained stable at 1.9 million. And U.S. consumers are still spending. Retail sales were up 0.6% in June compared to the prior month. That rise marked a big rebound from the steep, nearly full 1% decline in May. The June spike was also a much bigger jump than economists were expecting. Spending at car dealerships was notably higher. But the positive news comes with the caveat: the numbers aren't adjusted for inflation. Factoring in consumer price increases cuts that June retail sales bump in half. Sales at restaurants and bars remain solid. Experts say that's a good sign considering those businesses tend to be leading indicators of any pullback in spending. Coming up, we find out how a grassroots movement inspired over 400 million Chinese citizens to peacefully renounce the Chinese Communist Party and why. Stay with us.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is me? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid? Let's do it. First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person. and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. How did I get here? I can see now.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump recently underwent medical tests due to mild swelling in his legs and bruising on one hand. Hear what the White House is saying about his condition. Attorney General Pam Bondi visits Alcatraz Island in San Francisco. She's expected to formally announce plans to reopen the landmark as a federal prison. Thousands of Falun Gong practitioners gather in the nation's capital today. They're marking 26 years of peaceful resistance to the persecution in China. The State Department and U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle call for an end to the human rights abuse. Debt outweighing expansion. That's why S&P says it has downgraded Nippon Steel's credit rating following its merger with U.S. Steel. Cyber hackers are zeroing in on the semiconductor industry. New research reveals mounting attacks from Chinese-linked groups.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon. In a White House press briefing, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt highlighted the administration's progress in sealing the southwest border. She noted just over 6,000 apprehensions at the border in June, 15% lower than the previous record set in March. She also gave details on ICE arrests and deportations.
For the second consecutive month in a row, President Trump promised to end the illegal alien invasion, and he has delivered on that promise to the American people in record time. With the border sealed, deportations are ramping up. This past weekend, our brave ICE agents were arresting violent criminal illegal aliens all across the country. ICE Atlanta arrested an illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of attempted rape of a child in North Carolina. ICE Baltimore arrested an illegal alien from Guatemala who was previously convicted for sexual abuse of a minor in Maryland. ICE Houston arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico whose previous conviction includes aggravated sexual assault of a child in Texas. ICE Salt Lake City arrested a 32-year-old illegal criminal alien from Mexico who was previously convicted for child abuse and injury. ICE Baltimore arrested a criminal illegal alien from El Salvador convicted in Maryland for possession of child pornography. And ICE San Antonio arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico convicted of aggravated sexual assault in Texas.
Leavitt also confirmed details of President Trump's current state of health following a comprehensive medical check.
In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House Medical Unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function, no signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think.
Attorney General Pam Bondi and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum visited Alcatraz Island in San Francisco this morning. They toured the island before it opened for tourists. Bondi is expected to formally announce plans to reopen Alcatraz as a federal prison President Trump first called for back in May. Alcatraz operated as a penitentiary from 1934 to 1963. It housed some of the nation's most dangerous criminals like Al Capone and Robert Stroud, the so-called Birdman of Alcatraz. After the visit, Secretary Burgum said the Trump administration is starting to work to renovate and reopen the site to contain the most dangerous criminals again, as well as the most dangerous illegal immigrants. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt commented on the plan.
And if the Alcatraz prison is reopened, it would be under the purview of the Bureau of Prisons. And the Secretary of Interior also would play a big role in this as well. So they're there to review the site today, and I'm sure you'll hear more from them on it later. And just to follow up, Libby, on who the president wants to see housed in Alcatraz, the worst of the worst criminals in this country, both American criminals who convict heinous crimes, but also illegal alien criminals before deportation as well.
The Senate passed this early morning its version of the rescissions package and now heads to the House for a final vote ahead of the July 18th deadline. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has the details on the story.
We're looking forward to the House blessing the Senate package. I'm not worried about it. We need to get it done and get it across the finish line, but very historic moment, the return of using rescissions, getting the muscle memory for that back into the system. We've talked about defunding Corporation for Public Broadcasting for decades. President Trump's the first one to be able to do it.
Early Thursday morning, the Senate passed after an overnight session the president's $9 billion rescissions request that would claw back funds from USAID, NPR, and PBS. Lawmakers expect this to be the first of several rescissions packages to go through Congress this year.
Look, I think the biggest problem that this country faces is our $37 trillion national debt, that we're spending $1 trillion a year on interest. So the fraud, the waste, the abuse is out there. We need to do something, and this is some, I would say, low-hanging fruit. I wish that we had a bit bigger rescission package.
All but 2 Senate Republicans voted in favor of the bill. Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski opposed the bill on principle.
I have a vote that I am free to cast with or without the support of the president. My obligation is to my constituents and to the Constitution. So I look at the Constitution and say that it is the legislative branch that has the power of the purse.
The $9 billion rescissions package now heads to the House, where lawmakers have until July 18th, this Friday, to pass the bill.
So we're going to take a look at it today, see what the Senate did. I think they did some stuff in a tribal context for stations, which is appropriate. Those public broadcasting stations in the West, overlay them with who voted for President Trump, and it's like, guess what? These were the president's people in a voter sense.
Democrats in the Senate and the House have opposed the bill that requires only a simple majority to pass through Congress.
Well, the first thing I would say is they're doing this in large measure because of the failures of Elon Musk and Doge. He promised he was going to save $2 trillion from waste, fraud, and abuse. He never presented a single case of actionable fraud. And now, instead of $2 trillion, they're focused on $9 billion.
The House of Representatives is also expected to vote this Thursday on their version of the defense appropriation bill for fiscal year 2026. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Thousands of Falun Gong practitioners will gather in the nation's capital today. They're marking 26 years of peaceful resistance to the persecution in China. The State Department and U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle call on the end for the Chinese regime's abuse on human rights. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
On July 20th, 1999, the Chinese Communist Party launched a brutal campaign to eradicate a widespread spiritual discipline known as Falun Gong, or Falun Dafa.
They're not, and they treat their people as if they're disposable assets, and they're not. I mean, all people are created in the image of God, and we need to do everything we can to prevent these types of horrific crimes from taking place.
As we approach the 26-year mark of the persecution, the State Department described it as a campaign of repression against practitioners of Falun Gong and their families. Telling the Epoch Times, we again call on the CCP to end its campaign to eradicate Falun Gong. U.S. lawmakers told NTD the importance of standing up to the persecution.
And that if we don't call out human rights abuses from a country that is seeking to expand its sphere of influence across the world, it really challenges American safety and security and prosperity. And
in America, we believe that people have individual liberties granted to them by God, and we hold that very dear for people all around the world. So we've got to always call out persecution.
I will continue to stand with the Falun Gong practitioners, and Chinese government looks at it as a form of threat. I think that's completely wrong.
Today, thousands of Falun Gong practitioners will gather in the nation's capital to rally against the ongoing persecution and commemorate those who've lost their lives at the hands of the Chinese regime.
Basically the guts to stand up against a government like that, and Americans and anybody that believes in human rights, we have to stand with them.
A dangerous government and a very powerful government going against you. It is a hard thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. We stand for what's right, and I think those are the people who write history. That's what history is written about.
In the end, tyranny is broken by the people.
The House recently passed a bill to sanction CCP officials who engage in forcibly harvesting organs from living people, mainly prisoners of conscience who practice Falun Gong. Lawmakers are calling for Senate leadership to take up the House bill.
It's despicable this is happening. So we've got to tell the Chinese government that we're not going to stand for it.
We need to make some kind of decision. The House has done that. We need to do the same thing.
I don't think we've done enough. We need to do more. And I appreciate the attention that's being brought to the horrible things that China does.
The rally in Washington, D.C. aims to raise awareness among Americans about the persecution, expose the CCP's human rights abuse, and call for the U.S. government to further hold the regime accountable for its malign acts. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Coming up, Texas is biting into candy maker Mars. Its attorney general has launched an investigation into alleged deceptive practices over synthetic dye removal. We have that and more when we return.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from other people that are here.
Apoyo y orientación que me da.
Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Be your own hero.
Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted.
Increasing concerns about the expanding reach of authoritarian regimes and the mounting threats they pose to national security and civil liberties. We now turn to a Safeguarding Freedom Forum in Washington, D.C., where speakers talk about countering the Chinese Communist Party's transnational repression.
这些中国人的勇敢行动。
Distinguished guests, member of the media, and everyone here, good afternoon. I'm speaking here today representing the Global Trade-on Center. The Chinese word stands for Quitting the Chinese Communist Party, CCP organizations. Nearly 450 million Chinese people have joined the movement. It's not a political uprising, but a movement of moral awakening aimed at regaining the freedom of thought and affiliation. Global Trade-on Center has been privileged in facilitating these brave acts.
让我告诉你们，为什么这么多人选择摆脱这些渗透中国人整个人生的各类中共组织？中共组织有3个主要层面：从6岁起的小孩必会加入少年先锋队。 14岁以后的青少年呢，再进入了共青团，而18岁成年之后，即可加入中国共产党。少年儿童如果不入队、不入团，会显得格格不入，甚至失去好的就学机会。
I can try use this now. Okay. Let me tell you why people choose to break free from the CCP's tight control with this apparatus that penetrates people's entire lives. The CCP has 3 organizations for different age groups: the Young Pioneers from 6 to 14-year-olds, the Communist Youth League for 14 to 28-years-olds, and the Chinese Communist Party for adults. Membership of the Young Pioneer and Youth League is nearly compulsory. For children and adolescents who refuse to join, they stand out like a sore thumb and may lose academic opportunities. For adults, career opportunities in Chinese state-owned enterprises and government agencies are all contingent on party membership.
而成年人不入党可能得不到晋升的机会，无法在政府、国企甚至于私企立足。 中国法律自1993年明文规定，任何拥有3名以上中国共产党的单位、共产党员的单位，包括外国的跨国公司，都必须设立党支部。而这项措施从2012年起被全面的强化。
Okay, you want me to go on?
人们入党团队时，在党旗下宣誓为共产主义奋斗终生，随时准备为党献出一切，永不叛党。人们入党后离开党组织，一般都是被开除出党，那是最严厉的惩罚。失去政治上或经济上的特权，通常 还有毒死或者犯罪调查，什么关押，甚至于坐牢。你可能会在一夜之间失去你自己的一切。因此，退出党团队需要勇气与智慧。
Chinese law requires any organization, including multinational corporations operating in China, to establish a party cell, as long as there are 3 or more CCP members working there. This requirement is rooted in the 1993 PRC company law and has been more actively enforced nationwide since 2012, particularly in the private sector. When one joins the CCP, one has to take an oath before the party flag to pledge to fight for communism for the rest of one's life, always be prepared to sacrifice one's complete self for the party and the people, and never betray the party. A party member only really leaves the CCP after being expelled. Losing the party membership is, in that case, a severe punishment that signifies loss of all political and economic entitlements. CCP disciplinary action will most likely result in social isolation, criminal investigation, detention, and even imprisonment. In other words, losing CCP membership in China could mean losing everything. Therefore, renouncing CCP affiliation takes wisdom and courage.
许多人退出中共，不为权，不为利，他们只是再也无法与一个对人类犯下活摘法轮学员器官惊天罪行的组织同流合污。而中国的魔掌不止于中国大陆。2025年4月29日，在纽约法拉盛，一名男子暴力袭击了全球推展中心的摊位，该摊位是由法轮功学员志愿者维持的。这名男子上前踢打，争向摊位，大声咆哮，威胁法轮功学员，企图引起事件。在2025年4月20日至5月10日期间，全球推广中心在法拉盛的办公室就收到了8封电子邮件的威胁，内容涉及到爆炸、炸弹攻击、枪击、强奸、车祸与绑架儿童，这是中国政权输出的恐怖主义。更有证据显示，这些威胁来自于中国的 IP 地址。而在同一时间，纽约市皇后区的多家图书馆也收到了类似的炸弹威胁，企图迫使他们取消与法轮功有关的文化活动。这不是孤立事件，这是跨国迫害。中国使用的超限战的策略，利用美国的法律系统、舆论机器，发动了法律战与舆论战，其目的不是单一的为了宗教，而是全面的破坏美国的价值。法轮功声乐艺术团、大剧院媒体和一些坚守普世价值的个人与团体正成为中共的目标，而最终的目标是美国本身。
A lot of people quit the Chinese Communist Party and its organizations. They don't do it for power. They don't do it for personal gains. They just do not want to be associated with an organization that has committed such crimes like live organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners. However, the evil clutches of the Chinese Communist Party has extended beyond the land of China. On April 29th, 2025, Global Tweedong Center's booth in Flushing, New York, run by volunteers who are Falun Gong practitioners, was attacked. A man came to kick the booth, almost knocking it over. The man also shouted threatening words at a Falun Gong practitioner, provoking a fight. Between April 20th and May 10th, our center received 8 emails threatening bomb attacks, shootings, car accidents, rapes, abductions of children, and other acts of terror. A representative from NYPD confirmed that these emails originated from IP addresses in China. Several libraries in Queens, New York City received similar bomb threats in an attempt to force them to cancel cultural activities related to Falun Gong. Those are not isolated incidents. This is transnational repression. The CCP employs unrestricted warfare using the American legal system and public opinion machine to launch legal warfare and public opinion warfare. It targets not just a single religion, it targets to completely destroy America's value systems. It appears that for now, CCP is targeting just Falun Gong, Shenyang Performing Arts, the Epoch Times Media Group, and as well as individuals and groups who adhere to universal values. However, ultimately, the goal is the United States itself.
一旦中共能在美国本土成功迫害信仰者，美国将陷入道德共犯的困境，美国的自由将成为笑柄。美国的道德领导地位将被侵蚀，而当这一天到来，中共将无需再遮掩，他将把对法轮功群体灭绝扩展到全球，并以此霸凌整个人类社会。我在这里不是为了传播恐惧，我是来唤起良知的力量。我坚信，就像当年我们相信柏林墙终将倒塌一样，中共也终将垮台，但是前提是我们站出来。
Ultimately, the goal is the United States itself. I say this because if the CCP can successfully persecute Falun Gong practitioners on American soil, the United States will fall into the dilemma of moral complicity. American freedom will become a laughingstock, and America's moral leadership will be eroded. When this day comes, the CCP will apply the method they used to attack Falun Gong to the whole world and use it to bully the entire human society. I'm not here to spread fear. I am here to awaken the power of conscience. I firmly believe that, just like I firmly believe that Berlin Wall would eventually fall, the CCP will eventually fall. But the premise is that we need to stand up and step forward.
我们揭露他的罪行，谴责他的跨国镇压，坚守信仰自由，保卫我们的宪法、我们的国家、我们的未来。各位朋友，当这个时代写下历史的时候，我们希望他记下，在中共集权再度横行之际，在跨国迫害悄然渗透之时，有这么一群人，这么一个国会，这么一个团体，这么一个国家，他们没有沉默，我们选择了良知，我们选择了真相，我们选择了自由。谢谢各位。
We must stand up to expose these crimes, condemn the CCP's transnational repression, uphold freedom of belief, and defend our Constitution, our country, and our future. Dear friends, I hope that in the future, when we look back on today, at a time when the CCP's totalitarianism is rampant, its transnational repression is quietly infiltrating, we can proudly say that I'm with such a group of people, such a Congress, and such a country who did not remain silent. We chose to speak up and stand by conscience, truth, and freedom. Thank you all.
Thank you so much to Dr. Wong. His work and the center is severely overlooked, in my opinion, because it truly offers hope to the Chinese people who otherwise don't feel like they have a path forward. But through quitting the CCP and its affiliated organizations, a lot of Chinese people, hundreds of millions of Chinese people, feel like they have a next path forward. Next, we're thrilled and honored to have Congressman Chris Smith and his team joining us today as one of the first congressmen who saw through the CCP for what it truly is over 30 years ago. I'm thrilled to welcome him for his remarks. Please welcome him on stage.
Cynthia, thank you so very much, and thank you all for being here. Dr. Wong, that was a tremendous, I got to hear most of your comments, and thank you for your leadership, the incisive commentary you just provided to all of us. So thank you. And what a great assembling of people who care so deeply about human rights, hear about the rights of the Falun Gong that are being violated with impunity by Xi Jinping. I actually offered the first resolution in the U.S. House of Representatives recognizing and pushing back on the Chinese Communist Party's repression of the Falun Gong. And, there's a great, broad, bipartisan support for all of you. You've got to know that, House and Senate, and all over the world. So, we are inspired by your courage and deeply depressed by Xi Jinping's horrific repression of you each and every day, both in country and increasingly by going after the diaspora, which is what they're doing with transnational repression. I would even amend that. It's transnational terrorism as to what they seek to do to undermine and to hurt people who are just filled with kindness towards others. It's an amazing thing that you do with the Falun Gong as practitioners, and why would he be so threatened by that kind of very benign manifestation of goodness? I don't get it, and I haven't gotten it all these years. Last week right here, we had a big meeting of the recognizing the 10th anniversary of the 709 crackdown, and Falun Gong practitioner leaders were here, Falun Gong leaders, as well as Uyghurs, Tibetan Buddhists, and of course some of the leaders from Hong Kong. And even here, there was an incident where a provocateur got in the face of one of the top people here and tried to foment something, all contrived, all part of an effort to intimidate and harass. But even here, right in this room, right outside the walls there. So I don't have to tell each and every one of you that transnational repression is bad and it's getting worse. It's about time we stepped up to the plate and did far more than what we have been doing. We do follow, and I follow, all of us follow daily how things have been just how the long arm of the Chinese Communist Party's dictatorship reaches in to hurt, to malign, to undermine, and to target people here as well as your relatives back home. Shenyun, that's been attacked so many times, including with bomb threats, going back to 2006 when it first began, and even right here in Washington D.C. There's no boundaries to what this dictatorship will do anywhere and everywhere, and we've got to stand boldly against it. And you are doing that. So I really thank you. When the APEC summit occurred in 2023, we saw again how the malign actors of the Chinese Communist Party rallied and did everything they could to harass, intimidate, and commit violence against those who were protesting Xi Jinping's appearance at that. And I actually, I do chair now I'm co-chair, but I was chairing then it flips back and forth every year, as you probably know, Senate and House. The Congressional Executive China Commission. So we held hearings, we had press conferences, we heard from people who had been harassed, and the response from our country was lackluster, particularly in San Francisco. It did not rise to the level of standing with people who were being repressed, again, by the long arm of a dictatorship. Senator Merkley and I are introducing again, we did it last year, it did not pass, but we're going to do it again this year, the Transnational Repression Policy Act. And again, another bipartisan effort that really needs to get on the president's desk as soon as possible. And of course, this is all about mitigating transnational repression, including actions by foreign governments, not just the Chinese, but all of them that are dictatorships, as they seek to intimidate, silence, harm members of the diaspora and exiled communities to prevent them from exercising their fundamental human rights. It requires the president to impose property and visa blocking sanctions on certain foreign persons, individuals and entities that directly engage in transnational repression. And let me just parenthetically say that in 2004, I authored what is known as the Belarus Democracy Act. It was directed at Lukashenko, another dictator, in this case in Europe, as you all know, in Belarus. And we got that into law. I was the prime author of it. And we put people on lists. And that's what, and they were barred from transactions here economically, and they couldn't get a visa. And many of the people that were in prison at the time got out, and we're still fighting very hard to get people out of Lukashenko's prisons. But that law was the template for Magnitsky Act, the Global Magnitsky Act, and this act in terms of, what sanctions do we have? Well, we have those two: visa blockage and the making it them unable, they being people on the list, to engage in anything relative to economics here in this country. It also requires the Department of State to develop a strategy to promote initiatives that enhance international awareness of transnational repression, address transnational repression, including by raising the costs of perpetrating repressive activities by protecting targeted individuals and groups. It also requires the State Department and DOJ, Department of Justice, to provide training to certain individuals as on aspects of transnational repression, to really enlighten, motivate, inform our law enforcement community about this so that they can do a better job of pushing back against it. The bill directs the Intel Committee to prioritize, to the extent feasible, the identification of those that are perpetrating these crimes in the United States. So it's a whole of government approach to try to stop what's happening right now in our country, and it's happening all over the world as a result of Xi Jinping's dictatorship. I also, and I heard this mentioned a moment ago by Dr. Wang, years ago, more than 25 years ago, I had my first hearing on the issue of forced organ harvesting. Harry Wu brought information to my subcommittee on human rights. We chaired hearings, and we heard how they were killing prisoners to extract their organs. They kept them alive long enough to take the organs out. Ambulances were at the killing fields, and then they would use them for transplantation. That now has evolved and morphed into a industrial-sized atrocity that is very reminiscent of Joseph Mengele in Nazi Germany, using medicine as a way, so-called medicine, as a way to make huge profits, billions, while transplanting or extracting these organs from individuals. We know now that the average age of these victims in the Falun Gong and the Uyghurs are the primary two groups that are targeted by Xi Jinping, both as part of a genocidal effort on his part, but also because of the healthiness of individuals in both of those communities. Falun Gong practitioners are very healthy. So they target them to extract their organs between 2 to 6 per person, equally divided between male and female, by the tens of thousands every year. And, our government, all the governments of the world need to cry out for an end. And our bill, which passed the House twice, passed the House last Congress, died in the Senate. It passed again 2 months ago, 406 to 1. Has a whole series of penalties for any part of that supply chain of procuring organs that is tainted. Up to 20 years in prison for somebody who knowingly procures, the brokers that are bringing people to Beijing to get their organs within a week. You only get an organ that quickly when you have access to prisoners and you have typecast and gotten information about them so that you know how to match them with a potential recipient. Again, we've had several hearings on it. I've chaired them, like 5. We even had one doctor who actually did them. And while he was testifying, he said, he was by Zoom, he goes, all of a sudden my victim, because he now is very remorseful, my victim started moving and waking up while he was taking his organs out of his body. Falun Gong has been, your loved ones have been targeted for this atrocity. Our bill, which I've asked the Senate to take up, and I'm asking them again, I ask you to have them take it up, get it down to the president and sign it. And then again, it has Magnitsky type sanctions in it. Like I said before about the Belarus Democracy Act, so we could reach in and reach the Chinese officials. But it also puts everybody on notice. You enable this Nazi-like atrocity, you're going to jail if you're anywhere here in the United States or any way we can reach you. And I just urge you, please, to do what you can to get that passed. And I don't know why the Senate has been sitting on it for 2 years. So we thank you so much. Pierre Atazi is our chief counsel, chief of staff for the China Commission. I want to thank him for his work. He spoke earlier at the larger meeting outside. Thank you, Pierre. And again, I can't thank you enough. by you being here, by you helping to enlighten, mobilize, and prioritize all of us. We will do more. And we will keep fighting until the Falun Gong and people in China are free. And when that day comes, you will be remembered as the heroes that made it happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the Congressman for your powerful comments. After hearing his remarks, I want to make a quick adjustment to my comments in the opening. I had said that the threat is at our doors. I'm reverting on that comment. And now we know from the Congressman and from other previous speakers, the threat is actually inside our doors, inside of Congress. It's inside of our homes, like one of the next speakers, Mr. Chung, will say. His home was literally broken into, and the Ministry of Public Security has a manhunt, a bounty on his head. We'll get to that a bit later, but I heard that we have another congressman here in the building. It's now my honor to introduce Congressman Scott Perry, who leads with courage and bravery against the Chinese Communist Party, and also the reason that this incredible event was possible.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, you brave souls. I hope that's not over the top, but I think it's appropriate because I know that as people living in America of Chinese origin that you are targeted by the Communist Party of China right here in America, which is astounding to people like us. And thank you, Chris, for your powerful remarks. And I stand shoulder to shoulder with Chris Smith in this effort, but you in particular for standing up, for speaking out, for being brave against what is, to me, unfortunately, the wonderful, beautiful people of China and the wonderful land of China is being governed by a criminal organization known as the Communist Party of China with Xi Jinping at the top of it. And nothing could be more exemplary of the horrors of that existence more than the forced organ harvesting that Chris and I have worked so diligently on to try and remedy that. Now, of course, China's a sovereign nation, so that America can't go over there and impose our will on them. But we certainly can inform the population, the people of the United States of America, and the people of the world of what is happening in China. And I will tell you personally, I am appalled that we see fit, that we think it's okay, that we normalize the fact that we continue to have a general good relationship with China, where we generally do trade with China. This is a criminal organization that terrorizes people, that tortures people, and that murders people for the things that they believe. This is unacceptable in America. It is unacceptable in society. And it's about time that the United States of America lead the world and start breaking ties with China, with the Communist Party of China, until they either right their ways or there's a change in leadership in China. That's what must happen. Now, you, for your part, you're living in America, and you're enjoying your freedoms, hard-earned, and you're speaking your thoughts, your emotions, your voice. And because of that, and because we live in a free society, unfortunately, the Communist Party of China sends their goons here to monitor you. And heaven forbid you have family members back in China, right? Because the things you do here, they are punished for there. And somehow we allow this to happen in America as well. We allow the threats, the intimidations, bomb threats. There's threats against members of Congress for speaking to you at this event right now. Ladies and gentlemen, completely unacceptable in any normal free society. These people that are engaged in this, and I'm happy to report that I guess the most recent one where the bomb threat against the Falun Gong dance team, were convicted and put in jail for these threats. But it has to happen everywhere. The people that come from the Communist Party of China to America to impose their will on us must know that if they do that, if they engage in any of that, they will spend the rest of their lives in prison. That is the remedy to those kind of things. Now, it's hard to get proof, and I think we're going to have some maybe later today about the organ harvesting in China. And of course, China opens itself up to America. I have friends that have traveled to China, and they say it's wonderful and it's beautiful. And I'm sure it is, and I'm sure the people are wonderful and beautiful if you're not living under the imposed system of social credits, right? If you're a visitor to China. But if you're a visitor to China, the Communist Party is not letting you see what is happening in China behind the curtain. But we know because there have been studies, and we also know that there is no waiting list in China for an organ transplant. We understand, we can do the math. We're smart people. You are smart people. You know what that means. That means that there's a ready supply waiting. And who do they pick? Just like Chris said, the best of you. Those who take care of your body, your spirit, your mind. That's who they choose, because they don't want you on this planet. They don't want your free thoughts. They don't want your will to be free and the will of you to have your family members and the people that you love in China, just because they're people of the world, to be free, to exercise the freedom that you have. They want to rule with the iron fist that they have, and they do it by fear. They do it by fear. So, for our part, we have worked, just as Representative Smith has, the Falun Gong Protection Act, to make sure that there are penalties in America where we do have jurisdiction, to make sure that the intimidation, the bombing, threats, the threats to individuals for practicing their faith, that people go to prison for that, but also for people internationally that have ties to America that participate in any of that, including the organ harvesting, get captured by the long arm of the American law and spend time in prison in America. And I would think, as you would, these bills that we author and that we get to the House floor, they pass with bipartisan support. Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, everywhere in between. It is something that binds us together where we have differences, where everyone agrees that these horrors cannot exist and cannot continue. We pass them easily in the House of Representatives, but for some reason, we can't seem to get them to move in the Senate. And it would be an easy win for a society that is oftentimes divided, sometimes by the Communist Party of China itself and their propaganda on social media and otherwise, dividing us. It is something that we can agree on. And so while we are doing what we can, and you are spending your time away from your busy schedule today to be here in solidarity with each other, if you could do one more thing, and Chris also asked for it, talk to your senators. My goodness, we've written the language for them. They should be writing it themselves. But if they are too busy to write it themselves, well, we've provided it and we've passed it and it's sitting in your chamber. Could you please urge your leadership to take it up? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is important that as Americans, regardless of where your descendants came from, that we speak with one voice and that we speak loudly. And that we say it doesn't matter about the economic ties. It doesn't matter about the diplomatic ties. What matters is that we live for and we stand up for the sake of humanity together. And we will not, and we will no longer countenance the Communist Party of China and their evil ways. We must do this together. And we must send this message to the world, because commerce is a very strong, the allure of trading with the largest country on the planet, right? We can't, if you're in the NBA, look, if you love basketball, I will tell you, when when in the United States of America, we watch football on Sunday, we watch professional football in our house on Sunday. When they started kneeling during the national anthem, we quit watching it. We made a statement, at least among the people that we know, right? And so we must make a statement among the people that we know that we're not going to continue to buy Chinese goods. We're done with that. We are not going to try and act like China is a competitor among nations that is like other nations. The Chinese Communist Party is evil, and we can no longer countenance, and we must speak with one voice in every single action that we take. So I thank you for your bravery, because you know that your family members, the folks that are back in China that you know, might be punished for your actions today. And even in America, where the police can't be everywhere at every moment, that you might be punished for the actions that you take and the things that you think and the things that you say, and yet you're willing to do it anyhow, and you're willing to be here anyhow. And the person that steps up, the person that is the first in line, the person that's first to raise his or her hand, is the one that everybody else in your community is looking to show the way, and to show that if you can be brave, that they can be brave. And where there's one of you, there's 10 of you. And where there's 10, there's 100. And where there's 100, there's 1,000. And where there's 1,000, there's 10,000. And that's how Falun Gong and all the people that want to breathe free win this struggle against the Communist Party. So thank you. God bless you. Let's stay in the fight together.
Thank you so much. Well said, Congressman. Unity is strength, bravery is strength. And when there's one, there's 10, and now there's 400 million. And growing. So I think Chinese people would agree with us, and the American people would also agree that transnational repression is not right and cannot continue. Now that we have the two congressmen with us here today, we want to move into a first of its kind ceremony here in the Capitol to recognize courageous Chinese individuals who have chosen to publicly renounce their ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This will be their graduation into a new life, free from the CCP after decades of feeling like there's no second path. So first, we'd like to invite some speakers on stage to give them handshakes and congratulate them. I will call out their names now. Congressman Scott Perry and Chris Smith, Professor Bob Destro, and Mr. Erping Zhang. Please come stand here. And Piero Tozzi, of course. I will now read the names of these individuals who have bravely chosen to publicly renounce their ties to the CCP. As I call each name, Dr. Wong, president of the Global Service Center, will present them with a certificate recognizing their statement of renunciation. Simultaneously, we'll also project each certificate on the board as it's being awarded. Please feel free to show your support with a big round of applause, but we kindly ask that you hold your photos until the end, where we'll have a group photo. Let's begin. One. 示威招 永地流 And you can come here. Next is Jinrong Zhuang from Fujian province. 我们先给你，谢谢。Hereby quits the CCP. Zhao Shangchu. Thank you so much. Gui Qian Zhang from Henan province hereby quits the CCP's Young Pioneers. Qing Mingxiang hereby quits the CCP. Thank you and congratulations to all of you. Please gather together in the center. All of you on stage, please gather in the center for a quick group photo to commemorate this momentous occasion. Thank you so much. Please be seated. And now to speak on behalf of this group, please welcome Mr. Gong Kai. Mr. Kai will deliver a brief 2-minute public statement on why he's renunciating his affiliations to the Chinese Communist Party, and he will have an interpreter. We welcome Mr. Kai.
So I'm going to just read his speech. Everyone, my name is Gong Kai. I come from China Democratic League for Human Rights, an alliance that's firmly against the CCP's persecution. I hereby announce that I denounce the Chinese Communist Party and quit all organizations of the CCP. I thank the Global Trade-On Center for this opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of myself, my family, and hundreds of millions of Chinese people, and to express our wish freely to get rid of the CCP's control. Everyone knows that in the 80 years of the CCP's rule, no matter how they changed their struggles, what's unchanged, what remains was killing people. 80 million innocent Chinese people died of the CCP's persecution. And I myself, in CCP's one-child policy, I almost got killed. And the Chinese Communist Party is still killing people. We all know that the COVID-19 virus is a virus leaked from a Chinese lab and has spread to the United States and has taken a lot of lives of Americans. It pains my heart. And what concerns me more is that the Chinese Communist Party's persecution has also extended to America. One time when I attended a memorial event for the 1989 June 4th Democratic Movement, my car tires were deliberately slashed. The CCP has persecuted so many people. Why hasn't it collapsed? Because it controls the information, free flow of information. It controls the internet. It steals, in base means, steals high tech from America, military, biotechnology, AI, you name it. And it has also launched unrestricted warfare to America, the beacon of freedom, and the goal is to ruin the entire humankind. I also want to thank Falun Gong practitioners for their decades of giving. They built the platform to help us quit the CCP organizations. They built the firewall software program to help us circumvent the CCP's internet control, and they helped Chinese people to see the evil nature of the Chinese Communist Party so we could see its true color and get rid of its control and denounce it. Falun Gong practitioners have brought people hope and a bright future. Today, I urge everyone in America to help Chinese people to dispel Chinese Communist Party's lies, for people to be able to, more people to quit the CCP and disintegrate the CCP. Otherwise, the CCP is going to export its persecution to the entire world. Thank you, great America.
大家好，我叫龚凯，我来自中国民主人权联盟。这是一个坚定反对中共迫害的联盟。我在这里宣布与中共决裂，彻底退出中共的党团队等一切组织。我感谢全球退党服务中心给我这一个机会，能够代表我的家庭和亿万中国人在这里自由地表达我们要摆脱中共的这个愿望。大家知道，在中共统治的这个80年的专制统治中，无论其运动的方式如何变化，政策如何变化，唯一不变的就是杀人。共有8000万以上的无辜的中国人死于中共之手。我本人也是中共一胎化政策的牺牲者，差点被杀死。中共现在还继续杀人。众所周知，新冠病毒就是中共病毒，就是中共研究、制造、泄露的病毒。病毒传到美国，夺走了多少美国人的生命，我非常心痛。更让我担心的是，中共的镇压手段已经蔓延到美国。我在一次参加6·4纪念活动时，汽车轮胎被故意划破，这和他们当初对待神韵义士团的手段是一模一样的。中共迫害这么多人。
You're now watching the Safeguarding Freedom Forum, where speakers are sounding the alarm on the seriousness of the Chinese Communist Party's transnational repression, with one speaker warning if the CCP succeeds, freedoms in the U.S. will be severely undermined, and Representative Chris Smith at the forum also characterizing the transnational repression as transnational terrorism. Our coverage of this Safeguarding Freedom Forum will continue in D.C. in just a moment. Don't go away.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
And now we continue with the event in Washington, D.C. that is exposing the human rights abuses of the Chinese Communist Party. We're going to hear a survivor's testimony of what he personally experienced.
给我做了手术。
I was arrested in May 2001, and on November 16, 2004, the Daqing prison sent me to the Daqing City Hospital and performed a surgery on me without my consent.
当时狱警6名警察强行摁住我，给我打了麻药。
6 prison guards pinned me down on the ground and forcibly injected anesthesia.
在我不同意的情况下，他窃取了我的器官。
Without my consent, they stole my organs.
第二次我又送回监，第二次在2006年的3月2日，又把我在大庆监狱押往大庆市龙南医院。
That was the first time. I was then sent back to the same prison. However, on March the 2nd, 2006, I was sent by the prison to another hospital, Longnan Hospital in Daqing City.
2006年的3月3日上午2点多钟，我在大庆市龙南医院有一次上厕所，我顺利地走脱了。
At about 2 a.m. on March the 3rd, 2006, I managed to escape the hospital after a restroom trip.
他们把我第二次押到医院时，还是准备对我进行窃取我的器官，但我走脱了。走出了今天，我站在这个场地上，中共攻击我的网络，他说我的手术他承认了，但是20厘米。我今天站在台上，我的手术刀口是35厘米。我现在让大家看一下。
您先让我说，对。I knew that they were gonna take my organs again, but I managed to escape. And the Chinese public security authorities said they acknowledged that they performed a surgery on me, and they claimed that my scar was 20 centimeters, about 8 inches, versus what I say is 35 centimeters or 14 inches. So I'm going to show everyone now here. Oh, I'm going to help him to lift the T-shirt. 怎样? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
在监狱里的犯人们就都在议论我，我被那个医院做了移植手术。
And in the prison, I heard hearsays from inmates saying that organ harvesting operations had been performed on me.
我3月3日从大庆龙南医院走脱之后，中共公安部下达了弊行通缉令，对我实施抓捕，奖赏5万元。
After I managed to escape the hospital on March the 3rd, the China's Ministry of Public Security put a bounty on me with an award of 50,000 yuan. It was about $6,500 at the time.
从新疆兵团到海南，到上海，到衡阳，到西安，到黑龙江，公安部5局，还有那个武汉，还有广东，这些都有通缉令，当时都有通缉令记载。
So there were bounty records across China, from Xinjiang to the most southern point of China in Hainan province, across the country. They launched a nationwide manhunt after me.
他们秘密的下达的命令是抓住我，就地枪毙，灭掉我的口供。
I learned that their secret order was, if they capture me, they were authorized to kill me right there on the spot in order to eliminate me as a piece of evidence.
我今天来到这个场地，我要感谢大家能跟大家一起，表达我的心声，因为我还要继续发声。曾经跟我在一起那些同修们，他们已经失去了生命。
I'm here sharing this information with everyone. I think I'm fortunate, and I'm going to keep speaking up because those fellow Falun Gong practitioners who were in the same prison as me, they have lost their lives.
这失去生命，李慧峰、王宇东、朱秀敏等20多人。
Their names are Li Huidong, Li Huifeng, Wang Yudong, and Zhu Xiuming, Wang Dayuan, and Yuan Xinjiang, and more than 20 people.
现在中共的活摘技术在世界上遥遥领先。
Now the Chinese Communist regime has leading organ transplantation techniques.
他们的器官的数量触目惊心。
And they have shockingly many organ transplantation surgeries performed.
同时，世界上人们也看到了这个巨大的供体，它是从何而来？
And the world has seen that and has been asking the question, where is that organ source coming from?
这个他们的供体主要来源于就是受迫害的法轮功群体。
The primary source is the Falun Gong practitioners who are persecuted in China.
我就是被他们窃取器官的其中之一。
I am one of them who got my organs stolen by them.
我2015年我来到了国外第3国，我感谢美国政府、美国官员、美国助理国务卿德斯特罗把我营救到美国。
I managed to escape China and arrived in a third country in 2015. I'd like to give my special thanks to Mr. Destro for rescuing me here, enabling me here to the land of freedom in the United States.
他们站在正义面前，他为弱者发声。
He helped the minority who don't have their voices, and he upheld justice.
自从我来到美国，公开站出来 为那个揭露器官这个就是个真相之后，中共一直对我现在是实施谋杀灭口。
Ever since I stepped forward to expose the Chinese regime's forced organ harvesting crimes, the regime has been targeting me to try to kill me, to remove this piece of evidence that's me.
因为中共，我是唯一幸存就是活摘幸存者，他们沾满了这些失去生命被活摘器官的这些法轮功群体，这些生命，他们沾满了我们法轮功群体被迫害死去这些生命的鲜血，双手沾满鲜血，我们要揭露出来。
I am the first and only known survivor of the organ harvesting crimes by the Chinese regime, and the regime has a lot of bloody deaths from killing Chinese people and Falun Gong practitioners. We need to step forward and call attention to it.
法轮功信仰修炼者真善忍，对社会安定，对使社会道德回升。
Falun Gong practitioners practice their principles of truth, compassion, and forbearance, and this enables the society to improve and morality to lift up.
对全人类社会有百利而无一害。
This is harmless and has a lot of benefits, offer a lot of benefits to the society.
他们打击善良，他们迫害善良，他们在屠杀善良。他们一定是邪恶。
The Chinese communist regime that suppresses and kills the innocent, then it must be evil.
今天在场的正义官员、美国人，我都谢谢你们伸出援助之手。
I'd like to thank the American leaders today here who has extended a helping hand to us.
消灭这场全人类历史上从来没有的活摘器官的这个罪恶。
To remove this unprecedented evil crimes of organ harvesting on this planet.
谢谢大家。
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to Mr. Chung. I've worked with him on a couple of occasions, and his transnational repression story is nothing short of terrifying, downright terrifying, because even after he's come to America, we've had to tell and report to local and state authorities about his home being broken into. His friends and family in China were calling him constantly, trying to seduce him back to mainland China so that he would willingly go back and give up the freedoms that he has here in America now. At one point, he did have a bounty on his head for over $6,000 US that the authorities put on him, and then the Ministry of Public Security even published an article of him and telling people about his so-called crimes. State subversion, trying to seek freedom is a crime now, I guess. Next, we're grateful to share video messages that we got from senators. First, we'll have a brief remark from Senator Ted Cruz, followed by Senator Todd Young, who wanted to share their remarks but couldn't join us in person. Please play their video.
Good afternoon, everyone. For decades, the Chinese Communist Party has been engaged in horrific human rights atrocities against Falun Gong. The CCP fears the Falun Gong, its beliefs, and religious freedom in general, as they fear anything that is beyond the control of authoritarianism. These attacks should have ended long ago, and the United States should take action to stop it now. That's why I introduced the Falun Gong Protection Act, to shine a light on the CCP's atrocities and to hold the perpetrators accountable. Tyranny fears nothing more than truth, and darkness fears nothing more than light. To all the practitioners gathered in Washington today, thank you. Your courage, your resilience, and your commitment to protecting religious liberty are an inspiration. I will continue to stand side by side with you in this fight. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
It seems like we're having some technical difficulties. So for now, we'll invite... Oh, play the video.
Hello, I'm Senator Todd Young. I regret that I can't be with you in person today as you gather peacefully to stand against the Chinese Communist Party's oppression and religious intolerance. For decades, the CCP has used fear and coercion to suppress the rights of the Chinese people, targeting ethnic and religious minorities. Communities of faith, including Falun Gong practitioners, have suffered unimaginable abuses, detained, silenced, and stripped of basic human dignity, all under the guise of oppressive laws that label faith and culture as extremism or terrorism. Let's be clear. The CCP is actively working to erase culture, suppress religion, and silence free expression. I know many of you here today or your loved ones have been personally affected by these abuses. There are no words strong enough to express my sympathy for what you've endured. As a United States Senator, I believe our country has a moral duty to defend human rights, both at home and abroad. That includes confronting the CCP's atrocities, preventing future abuses, and working with our allies to advance freedom and justice around the world. I stand with you today in solidarity. Your courage, your voice, and your peaceful protests matter. Thank you for allowing me to share these words, and thank you for your continued fight for truth, freedom, and dignity.
Next, we will move on to another victim of transnational repression, Miss Cindy Song, a female producer of the groundbreaking documentary State Organs, which I believe 90% of you here have watched, which investigates the CCP's industrial-scale practice of forced organ harvesting. Her work demonstrates the power of media, art, and creative activism in exposing crimes against humanity.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm here to talk about PRC's transnational terrorism targeting the documentary, The State Organs. I will first briefly introduce what happens in Taiwan, then move on to the implication to Americans. So, November 27, 2024, Taiwan Legislative Yuan Foreign and National Defense Committee has a full committee session where the discussions focused on the PRC's terrorist threat targeting a documentary, a movie, which quickly became the top headline news on the Taiwan media. State Organs is a documentary talking about a forced organ harvesting in China. Since its theatrical release in Taiwan, the cinemas, the distributors, and various levels of government has received threats of mass shooting, bombing, and there was a sample to the right. This is an email sent to a theater in Taipei. So it says, please cancel the screening of State Organs. If you continue the screening, we will break into the cinema and shoot everyone who can be seen. And there is another example where the suspect threatened they're going to kill everybody in the Tainan City Council. Up to February 9, 2025, we have collected over 100 threats targeting the screenings of state organs in Taiwan. And at least 4 of them explicitly said they will assassinate the president of Taiwan. There are examples of the email. So this is not transnational repression, it's transnational terrorism. Now, the Taiwan police preliminary investigation concluded that suspects from PRC often use such harassment tactics, deliberately sends threatening content to the media outlets, intending to create public panic. State Organ is an award-winning documentary, talks about 2 young men who disappeared in police custody in China. Their family embarked on a 20-year perilous journey searching for them. Along the way, they uncovered this government-run organ harvesting operation. So after we look into these messages closely, we found some consistent features that suggest it is a coordinated campaign. These features include impersonation. The sender forged the identity of notable figures such as Dalai Lama, President of Taiwan, Shenyun performer, distributor of state organs, and they used fake email addresses. I would like to move on to their connection with Americans. So we compared those messages with the threatening sent to Shenyun. We found there's striking similarities. First, many was sent from the same email addresses and wording the similars. These are the samples that they use the same email addresses. This show how they impersonate Shenyun performers, like this. Shenyun performers, and even use the email address of Dragon Spring Temple. We also received multiple emails saying they will bomb the Dragon Spring Temple, which is the location of Shenyun headquarters. Also, the timing. We noticed that when Shenyun was on the tour, the threats targeting state organs reduced dramatically. After the end of Shenyun's season, they came back to us again. The Liberty Times is one of the largest newspapers in Taiwan. They reported on October 10th, 2024, the suspect was more likely from Xi'an. The perpetrator who threatened Shenyun was also found to be from Xi'an, the same city. After considering all these factors, we have a clear picture that more likely they are the same person or one team. We have just discussed CCP's transnational terrorism. Now let's move on to talk about a different type of transnational repression, which is more hidden and invisible. It's transnational censorship. CCP has been using those tactics to control the media narratives and silence any criticism. I would like to give you a few real examples. On September 20th, 2024, when the King of Malaysia met Xi Jinping in Beijing, he thanked Xi for allowing his son to receive a liver transplant in China. January 14, 2025, Malaysia Ministry of Interior refused to issue a screening permit to our movie, citing that because Falun Gong is banned in China, the screening of such films could harm Malaysia's diplomatic relations with the PRC. Sorry. Now, Italy. This is one of the distributors in Italy. He told us all the docs on Falun Gong persecution have always been pushed away by Italian broadcasters. This is South Korea. We have 3 screenings booked on May 31st and June 1st. as part of the Seoul Larkspur International Film Festival. Weeks before the screening, the cinema requested cancellation, citing it would affect their business in China. The festival organizer changed to Mega Box Cinema. One day before the show date, after the tickets were sold out, the cinema suddenly canceled the shows without any valid reasons. So the incident was covered by many media in South Korea, including Sky Daily and France Today. And in aftermath, there is a rally in South Korea. People will call for full investigation on the issue about China's censorship in South Korea. Notwithstanding all these challenges, state organs has been very successful worldwide. We were in cinemas in more than 8 countries. We have more than 500 media reports and reviews, and social media trending on Threads has more than 20 million views. We were running cinema in Taiwan for 1 year, inspired parades in major cities, became a household name in Taiwan, which is a testament of kindness and resilience of Taiwanese. Now I'm showing some photos of parades in Taiwan. That will end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We want to close out the forum today. So we'll now turn to a high-level panel discussion on U.S. countermeasures to transnational repression. One of the first questions that we always get when people hear about this is, what can we do? What can we do? What can Congress do? And so I'm pleased to introduce our moderator for this discussion, Steve Lance, host of Capitol Report on NTD News, a fitting title for our next panel. Joining him are Professor Bob Destro, Representative Scott Perry, and Mr. Erping Zhang. Please come on stage for this discussion as we close out the forum. Thank you so much, and please give them a warm round of applause.
I want to thank our esteemed panel here. Congressman Perry, thanks so much for joining us.
It's awesome to be with you.
Congressman Scott Perry has introduced the Falun Gong Protection Act. It is a piece of legislation that is the first of its kind that has real consequences for the Chinese Communist Party. It has made its way through the House of Representatives twice, passed twice unanimously with bipartisan support, and is now making its way through the Senate. And so it's a very significant piece of legislation. Thank you for that.
Appreciate it. And as you saw, Senator Cruz has co-sponsored or sponsored the companion legislation in the Senate. What I can't get anyone to do is help me with the CCP as a transnational criminal organization. We would like to label them a transnational criminal organization so we could prosecute them for all the evil things that they do and all the crimes that they commit.
And this was an impromptu visit, and we really appreciate you coming on stage with us, Congressman. I'm going to introduce our other panelists. We do have Ambassador Sam Brownback, who is online. If you could see him on your screen here, he was supposed to be with us, but had some weather issues that prevented his flight. So we greatly appreciate him still making it online. Ambassador Sam Brownback has served as the United States Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, a lifelong advocate of human dignity. He's led global efforts to defend faith communities targeted by authoritarian regimes, including the CCP's persecution of Falun Gong. Ambassador Brownback is also a former U.S. Senator, Governor of Kansas, and a recognized leader in advancing international religious freedom as a core pillar of U.S. foreign policy. And to my right is Professor Robert Destro. Dr. Destro is the former Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. He's also a professor of law at the Catholic University of America's Columbus School of Law, where he has taught constitutional law, civil rights, and human rights for over 3 decades. Dr. Destro has played a pivotal role in shaping U.S. policy on international religious freedom and was instrumental in exposing and responding to the CCP's campaign of forced organ harvesting. His work bridges academia, law, and diplomacy, and in defense of conscience and the rule of law. Professor Destro was also instrumental in saving the organ harvesting survivor who we saw on stage telling his story just moments ago. Thank you for that. Thanks, Steve. And we have Mr. Erping Zheng. Mr. Erping Zheng is the spokesperson for Falun Gong and a founding voice in documenting and confronting the Chinese Communist Party's persecution campaign against Falun Gong. For over 2 decades, he has worked to expose disinformation and defend the rights of Falun Gong practitioners around the world. Mr. Zheng is a graduate of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy and John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, where he was an Edward Mason Fellow. So, esteemed panel, and please give them a round of applause. Mr. Zheng, I would like to start with you as the spokesperson of Falun Gong. As we approach July 20th, this is the 26th year, sadly, commemorating the persecution and those that have been persecuted and continue to be. Help us understand what changed on that day in 1999 and how Falun Gong went from being widely embraced to being violently persecuted.
First of all, I would like to thank the fellow panelists, distinguished supporters of Falun Gong over the years. It's a pleasure to be here to answer your question. Since July 20th, 1999, remarkable changes have taken place. It's almost day and night. I earlier had a communication with Ambassador Brownback that the Falun Gong group is unusual in the fact that it was not persecuted at the very beginning when it appeared in China back in 1992. Unlike other Christian groups, dependent groups, or the Uyghur groups, the Chinese government has always perceived them to be the enemies of state for a variety of reasons. As a matter of fact, when Falun Gong first emerged in 1992, the Chinese regime started to endorse it and shower it with proclamations, awards of certificates, touting it for health benefits. So until the end of the 90s, Falun Gong has been growing very fast in China with the support of the government because the Chinese government thought this is a good health regime for improving public health. In fact, in February issue of 1999, on the U.S. News and World Report, they interviewed the head of the Chinese Sports Commission, who claimed that there are 100 million, Qigong or energy practice, Falun Gong practitioners, that save 1,000 yuan per person. And if 100 million people practicing it, that's 100 billion yuan saved. And quote here, the Premier Zhu Rongji was happy about that, so the money can be, the country needs money now. And later, when they realized that Falun Gong is not just about the health regime, it comes with the Buddhist principles of truthfulness, compassion, tolerance. That's when the Chinese government decided, hey, this is not just, about a health regime, health exercise, but it's really about a renaissance of the traditional Chinese culture, spiritual culture, traditional faith, and traditional values. And this really got the Chinese Communist Party alerted. And then they said, we need to put a stop on this because communism regime is atheism. And this would mean that by reviving the traditional Chinese culture, values, spiritual life, that will be the end of the CCP regime, which is imported in the 1920s from former Soviet Union. So ever since then, from the part of the soft power export to foreign countries, the Chinese consulate in New York used to organize seminars to promote Falun Gong as a health regime. And then when they realize that this is really a renaissance of traditional Chinese culture, especially spiritual life, then they start persecute on July 20th. And we've seen the reports and of the persecution and the witness, testimonials today about how brutal, the people were treated in China. And as long as you sign a paper in China to resent, to give up the belief, they'll let you go from the labor camp. But we see thousands, millions of people refuse to do that because this means a lot to individual because personal faith. The principle of truthfulness, compassion, tolerance, though universal, but has a special bearing in China because the Buddhist school focuses on the cultivation of mind and body for compassion, for benevolence, whereas the Taoist school focuses on the cultivation of mind and body for truth, the ultimate truth to become a true being. So this is why it's of a high nationalism. It's really a mainstream Chinese society. According to Chinese government, a part of Chinese mainstream society. According to Chinese government figure that, there's 100 million people doing the practice. Let's assume, the population of Chinese population is still 1.4 billion, which, we know is no longer that number. Indian population surpassed that of the Chinese population. That means that every 1 of 14 person in China is a Falun Gong practitioner. And this is dreadful for the Communist Party because you have Falun Gong practitioner across different walks of life, in the military, in the government, in the academia, and also in the, workers and farmers. So this is really a revival of Chinese civilization prior to the communist regime. So this is why the Chinese government is so dreadful of this great movement.
I think Mr. Zhang raises a very important point when it comes to this particular persecution, is that Falun Gong is part of what they call the Han people. It is not an ethnic or regional group, and therefore it's stretched throughout the entire country and poses an even greater threat to the CCP in their eyes. Congressman Perry, talk to us about your legislation and just how impactful you think this will be if it ultimately gets passed and heads to the president's desk for signature.
Well, like I said, particularly focused on 2 pieces of legislation, one the Falun Gong Protection Act and one to designate the Communist Party of China as a transnational criminal organization. One has passed the House. The first has, again, like you said, we've run it a couple times. We're waiting for action in the Senate. Of course, that provides for penalties for people that engage in human rights atrocities associated with Falun Gong and the oppression of the Chinese Communist Party. And it doesn't matter if, obviously, we can't reach out to the sovereign nation of China, but if you're conducting these activities in the United States of America or in conjunction with someone in the United States of America, and the Department of Justice can reach out and you can be in their jurisdiction, well, then we can prosecute you for those crimes. And of course, labeling the Chinese Communist Party as a transnational criminal organization would have sweeping impact, not only for intellectual property theft, but of course all the human rights atrocities and anything involved in transnational criminal organization, including, as this young lady said, the terrorism that occurs by the Chinese Communist Party, and not only at home but abroad. So that would be, we would have the authority around the globe to deal with the crimes of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, some in America, some of my colleagues think that is a little far-reaching. I don't think it is. I think that China is run by a criminal organization known as the Chinese Communist Party, and you treat criminals like criminals no matter where they are. And the United States has a history of doing that. We just have to, we have to get right with that. And, if the NBA wants to succumb to the Chinese Communist Party, well, they can do that, but the rest of us don't have to.
To the congressman's point, when you really take a step back and put into perspective forced live organ harvesting, instead of just passing over that word and really put it into perspective, this is not a rogue actor. This is state-run.
Yeah, this is obviously, it is state-run. It is by design. It is. Most people can't think of anything more horrific, and there are few things that are more horrific. And I think that, quite honestly, most people around the country and around the globe just don't want to think about it because they can't imagine it's true. But obviously, it is true, and we didn't accept this in the 1930s and the 1940s, whether it was Stalin in Russia or whether it was Hitler in Germany. We didn't accept it, and we haven't accepted it whether it was Pol Pot in Cambodia or the genocides that happened in Africa. The United States has always been a leader in saying that these things will not stand, and we cannot let our relationship, our financial relationship with China, stand in the way of doing the right thing. We cannot do that. We can't, there's no way to morally sleep at night knowing that these things are occurring, and yet we'd be willing to go shake hands with somebody in China in the government, knowing that they know and that are part of this institutionalized genocide of people solely for the things that they believe.
Professor Destro, to the truth of Mr. Chen, who showed us his scar today, you helped to rescue him, the only known survivor, Falun Gong practitioner of organ harvesting. What was that process like?
Well, it was tough. It was, I think we've got it. Yep. Can we hear it? Okay. I heard the story and I thought, let's get somebody to look at it. And you don't realize that this was one of my first acts as assistant secretary. And somebody had told me, as an assistant secretary, you have a lot of authority. And the fact is you do. And so I just kept pushing people, and the resistance was enormous. But we eventually, I got people to look into it. We had to find out where he was in another country. I'm not going to name the country where it was at, but we had to extract him from the other country. The other country wasn't happy that he was there. Then we had to get him over here. We had to get him immigration status. And that just got him in the door. Then the question of how do you prove that he's actually a survivor? We had some of the best medical minds in the country looking at this. And I remember my one good friend at the Cleveland Clinic who took one look at that scar and he said, you could take anything out of that scar. It really is a horrific situation. I'm honored to have been able to use whatever authority I had, to get him out. But I want you to think of the big picture here. The big picture is you are all commodities. You're not just slaves. Remember, this is a chop shop we're talking about. You're actually worth more in pieces than you are as a person. And that's the government that our country is dealing with. And so if you don't understand that as you start to think about foreign policy, you're missing the point. And what I would suggest to all of you is, look, we're in World War III already. And the Chinese do business the old-fashioned movie is a great opportunity. There's a movie in Taiwan about to come out, a series called 0 Day, which looks at what would happen in Taiwan if there was an invasion. And the sponsors, under pressure from the Communist Party, are delaying it so that the recall election isn't effective. And my reaction is, you have to look, if you really want to understand what the Chinese operate like, read Sun Tzu. It's warfare across the board, information, human, and space.
And if I could give a shameless plug, add 9 commentaries on the Chinese Communist Party to the list.
Absolutely.
Ambassador Brownback, if you can hear us, we'd love to bring you into the discussion. We'll check signal here.
Yes, I can hear you just fine. And I wish I were there. And if it wasn't for
weather and 5 hours sitting in the airport last night, I would be there.
Thank you so much, and we hear you just fine. Ambassador, you have seen how authoritarian regimes export repression across borders. You've been at the tip of the spear both during your time as a civil servant and post right now. What does the persecution of Falun Gong reveal about the nature of the Chinese Communist Party, and what threat and cause do we need for concern about the transnational criminal element of this persecution reaching into the United States?
I think what it reveals is the great fear the Chinese Communist Party has of Falun Gong. And I've wondered about this, honestly, for years, because I've worked with Falun Gong people for 20, 25 years now in different capacities. And the Chinese Communist Party just loathes this institution, this group. They hate them, and they treat them worse than anybody. And that's really saying something, because the Chinese Communist Party treats all religions poorly. But I think what it amounts to is that they fear the most Falun Gong. The greatest threat to the Chinese Communist Party is religion. And the religion that is the most natural to the Chinese people is the Falun Gong. You've already heard that on this stage. China and the Chinese mentality and the Chinese heart. And I think that's why the Communist Party so fears and does everything it possibly can to stomp out this faith. And they won't get it done, because it's a physical man attacking a spiritual entity. It's the kingdom of man against the kingdom of God. And it won't succeed. You can cause a lot of harm in the process. The final point I would make here is that I think we as the United States government need to be very supportive of all faiths' right to freely practice their faith wherever they are, religious freedom for everybody, everywhere, all the time. And particularly in China, we need to be supportive of the Falun Gong movement of all faiths, of Christians, of Muslims, of Buddhists, everybody, but particularly the Falun Gong, because of their incredible importance to changing China, to getting it back to be the cultural beauty and free society, or freer society, and a free society that it can be, and a great contributor to the world, instead of the most really oppressive regime in the world today, and the one that's killed more of its own people than any regime in the history of mankind.
Thank you for that, Ambassador. Mr. Zhang, to the Ambassador's point about the CCP fearing Falun Gong the most, there have been reports that when American diplomats meet with CCP officials, Falun Gong is the third rail. If the topic of Falun Gong is mentioned, they get up and they walk out of the room. Is there truth to that? And how does that translate into how they have targeted Falun Gong on American soil?
I really like the term transnational terrorism and criminal organization. I think that's an accurate description of what's going on. Let's look at, different aspects. First, look at social media, how they weaponize our media, free media platforms. I remember I saw a report by Professor Gary King of Harvard. His research team found out in 1 year alone, the CCP posts 450 million fake news, fake, social media posts. And that was, quite a few years ago. And now it have escalated, and they utilize some of the mainstream media and the social media platform, to spread fake news and fake posts. Mostly these days against Falun Gong, because of the significance of Falun Gong, as Ambassador Brownback just mentioned. And then you have they even use Falun Gong's practitioner name, or using different celebrity name, the fake ID to send different kind of emails. Now they have escalated to send like a terrorist
terrorism threats, like, bomb threat and email threats, as you noticed, and Chris Smith also noticed, that is so rampant. For the Shenyun Performing Arts alone, they receive over 160 emails and death threats. So they really use the social media platform. We cannot post anything in Chinese media, right? In Chinese social media, internet, because it's the intranet, not the internet. So from the legal side, we know for the first time, we have foreign nationals with the CCP ties file civil case against American company like Shenyun. This is unheard of. I came to the country in 1984 when President Reagan was running against Mondale for presidential election. Back then, there was a Cold War between Russia, Soviet Union, and also the NATO, the Western democracies. It's unimaginable to see a Russian, former Soviet Union, backed individuals, foreign nationals, to file a civil case in the United States court against an American entity, American company. But this is happening today. So the CCP is really weaponizing our legal system to do that here. And also, if you look at our academic society, you know pretty well we have Confucius Institute here, who is funded by China and propagated CCP propaganda. I remember when I became the guest scholar at Stockholm University, the Nordic Confucius Institute tried to undermine my academic, fellowship there, and try to say that, I'm not qualified or whatever. So they are everywhere. And here in the United States, we have, many of them, and some have changed to a different name. They're still, trying to undermine the American liberty and free. I really think right now, what we're facing here, what Falun Gong community is facing in the United States is really a matter of national security. Our liberty, our constitutional rights is being undermined. American companies, cannot exercise their rights without fear. So this is something that's really scary. And then we have, free speech and the free belief, freedom of conscience, all being challenged and undermined by what's the CCP's influence operations here. So we really should, take a real concrete action. I really applaud to Congressman Perry's, suggestion that we really should criminalize them and, prosecute them here.
So unfortunately, this panel is too short because there was so much to really dive into. But we are coming up against the hard stop for us. We are almost out of time. I do want to go around the panel. We'll start with Ambassador Brownback. If you could just tell the audience, if there's one thing you'd like the audience to remember today or act upon, what would it be?
Keep strong, and my suggestion actually would be to get Secretary Rubio, Vice President Vance, and President Trump to meet with Falun Gong leaders or people that have been persecuted and highlight the importance of Falun Gong for freedom in China. I think our top leadership needs to be meeting with Falun Gong members and broadcasting that around the world and into China in particularly, showing our support for them like we did for the Solidarity movement in our Cold War effort, and backing Pope John Paul when he said in Poland, "Be not afraid." And when he did, that changed the mentality in Poland. This can change the mentality in China.
Thank you for that, Ambassador. Congressman?
I think my message would be that evil is ever present. Evil never stops. Evil never sleeps. So you must be diligent, you must be committed, and you must never stop as well. We must fight for our God-given rights every single day to preserve them and to expand them around the globe, because there are those, and of course the Communist Party in China is preeminent, that seek to take them, not only from the people in China, they seek to be the world's leader and export their terrorism and their tyranny everywhere, including right here. And so it starts right here, and it continues every moment of every day all around the globe. So be diligent.
Thank you, Congressman. Mr. Zhang.
I believe that because Falun Gong has become global, it's been practiced over 100 countries and with over 50 languages being translated. So it's not just a concern for Chinese people. It's really an issue that concerns the entire humanity. One innocent, peaceful, the largest persecution today, happening in China. History will look very kindly at those who side with history, with justice, and we should continue our effort. And hopefully, with collective, compassion and support, and people like you, on the panel, I believe the victory will be in sight very soon.
Thank you for that, Mr. Zhang. Professor Destro.
Well, two things. Let's stay together and share information like we're doing today, because once you start connecting the dots, you see just how pervasive.